Hey, everybody, it's Bob. Welcome back. Today in the studio, Greg Gadson. Come on, let's talk. Hey, thanks for coming back to the podcast, everybody. Today in the studio, we got Greg Gadson, a gentleman I met just a few months ago, but just an incredible individual. And I wanted to give you a little bit of his background. I'm going to read it. I'm sure I'm not going to capture everything, but I want to touch on this because it's going to be a great discussion today. Uh, Greg's obviously a great American. He's an actor, a motivational speaker, retired colonel from the United States Army, and he's the former commander of the U.S. Army Fort Belvoir Garrison. He served with distinction in the United States Army for over 25 years in active duty. All kinds of deployments and engagements. I'm sure I'll capture just a few here. Operation Desert Shield, Operation Desert Storm, Operation Joint Forge, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation Iraqi Freedom. When we look at Greg's accolades and awards, and I told him earlier I'm going to embarrass him a little bit today because I know he wouldn't want me to say it, but I think you need to know this. Greg was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal, the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star 3 times, the Purple Heart, the Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal. His alma maters are the United States Military Academy, West Point, Webster University, and Georgetown University. And we're going to talk about it towards the end. He's also written an incredible book, which I encourage everybody to go out and get a copy and read it. You will truly be riveted. But Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Bob. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Well, I've been looking forward to this day to talk to you about this. I think you have an incredible story. I think you have an incredible life journey. I think it'd be helpful maybe if we started at the beginning of just, where'd you grow up? What was your family, mother and father like?
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Bob. Well, I like to first acknowledge that I was born in Oklahoma City. My mom was out visiting her sister when I came.
Really?
So I was born in Oklahoma City. My parents were actually, ironically, living here in Washington, D.C., both full-time students at Howard University. And so a week after I was born, I was on a train back to D.C. And so we were living with a family, the Russell family on Kansas Avenue Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what brought my father here first was that his brother was in the United States Army, was a medic, and was stationed at Walter Reed. My dad didn't have enough money to go to college right away, and so he came here to work and live with his brother. So that's what brought us to Washington, D.C.
No kidding, D.C. It's interesting. We're doing the podcast from downtown D.C. today too. It's full circle.
Yep.
But
I called Chesapeake, Virginia home. 3 hours south or so.
Yep.
My father was a pharmacist, and he worked for Lilly for a few years after he graduated, but wanted to go into hospital pharmacy and took a chief pharmacy job down in Norfolk, Virginia. And we eventually settled in the Tidewater area in the mid-70s.
That's a nice area down there.
Yep.
That's a very nice area.
Yep. And so I kind of call that home. I've lived in Buffalo and Rochester, even Glenard, Maryland, so down the street. So
yeah. Did you have a big family?
Family of 5. I was the oldest of 3 kids. I have a sister that was 2 years younger than me, and a brother that's about 8 years younger than me.
Yeah. Did when you were growing up, because I think this is so much part of your story, where did the sports come into your background? I played baseball growing up, but I know you were a big athlete. Was that part of your dad too? Like, I know my dad always put me into sports to keep me out of trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm kind of curious where that all came from.
Well, no, it was my parents. My dad didn't grow up playing sports. A poor family, just couldn't afford it, afford to get hurt. And I just took a liking to sports. I played, little league baseball and football. I wrestled in high school and did track a little bit here and there. But I just I love being an athlete. I love being a part of a team.
And that's a big deal.
I saw that as my sort of path to building a life.
Yeah.
I like many kids, I wanted to grow up and be a professional football player,
Yeah.
and I put so much energy into staying on top of my books, probably not being the best student, but being an adequate student, if you will, and working toward earning a college scholarship, or so I thought.
Mm-hmm. When you were playing ball in high school, what position did you play?
I was a very undersized inside linebacker in high school.
In high school?
Yep.
And when you were in high school and you were playing ball, where did you want to go to school at? Where did you want to go to college?
Well, I guess, it's funny. I used to look up the, schools like Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I wanted the UNC. I wanted to play football at the top level. I wanted to play Division I football because I thought that would prepare me for a professional career.
Right.
I thought I thought I had earned a Division I scholarship to go to the University of Virginia. They had made a commitment, and shortly before the commitment day, they decided that they had some other priorities, and they weren't going to offer me a scholarship, but they wanted me to walk on, and I didn't.
Oh my goodness!
I was devastated.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, I was.
I mean, how did that news come? Did they just because back in the day, did they come to your house, send a letter?
No, I got a call. I got a call from Tom O'Brien. He was the coach on the staff that had been recruiting me, and ironically, he was a Naval Academy grad.
Really?
And so he was very apologetic. It wasn't a cold kind of a event, but it was. I remember and recall that he felt very disappointed that they weren't going to offer me a scholarship, but they wanted me to walk on, and they of course said, once you walk on and your talents rise above, we'll put you on scholarship. Well, I didn't really trust that, and I didn't have a plan B. And as fate would have it, a recruiter from West Point had come to my high school to recruit another classmate of mine, and my coach suggested that he take a look at me, and I would take my last official visit up to West Point, and I didn't know what it was, and really
had no idea what the school was.
Had no idea what it was about. But they played Division I football.
Right. Big time football.
And I was in.
That's right. Big time football.
And I'll figure out the rest later.
It's true, because I tell you, I ran a business company out in Texas, and I was in Oklahoma and Texas all the time. And you talk about two states that take up football seriously.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So you end up getting into West Point. Had no idea what you're getting into, really, other than it's playing football. And when you first go into West Point, and I think, a lot, even me, I look at a school like that and just think, my God, it's the cream of the crop. So when you first go, I mean, if you didn't know what it was about, was it overwhelming when you first went in there? The rules and the way that the school's run and what's required of you?
Well, yes and no. I say the no part because my academics were a little bit shaky, or not a lot shaky. I needed to work on my SAT scores to bring them up.
Yeah.
And so they recommended and sent me to the United States Military Academy Preparatory School at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. So I essentially had to enlist for a year, and all we did for 1 year of academics was focus on math and English and getting up our SAT scores. So a year, so I started that right after I graduated from high school. And so the following year, I would go into West Point. And because I had gone through basic training, the culture shock of West Point was gone.
You were set at that point. That makes a lot of sense to me, because I would think most people coming out of just a regular public high school that didn't have the background that walked up to a school or any of the military academies, probably really, I think that would be eye-opening. But since you did that, I think you probably came pretty prepared.
Yep, I did.
Do you remember your first day? Like when you showed up there, what happened your first day when you
Yeah,
walked into
well,
West Point?
the prepsters. First of all, they didn't even bother to harass us. We kind of went through and got our uniforms, and we sat in our rooms almost the whole day listening to the newbies right out of high school get yelled at, and we were just kind of like, you know,
You
you
already
know,
done that in basic.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
exactly.
yeah, they didn't want to waste their time on us. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So how did the football go at West Point? Good?
It went very well. I would, that year at the prep school was another year of maturity, and you could say in today's terms, it almost functionally became a redshirt year for me.
Yeah.
Just another year of physical and mental maturity, and so I was able to make the traveling squad as a freshman.
Oh, that's awesome.
And play enough to even letter my freshman year.
Oh,
So
wow.
so I lettered all 4 years, and while we were there, we had uh, 3 winning seasons, two seasons we went to bowl games, won the Commander in Chief's trophy,
That's
two
outstanding.
2 years as well. So I would say that we had some good football while we were there.
That's awesome. Now, when you're in there, what are you thinking about your career later on? Like, where, you know what I'm saying? Like, where's that going in
Right?
your head?
Yeah. So no no visions of really serving past 5 years. We had a 5 year service obligation that we had to serve upon graduation,
Right.
and I thought I would do my 5 years, but again, I just had a burning desire. I love football, and I wanted to get back into it. Oh, I knew I wasn't going to get back into it as a player, but I thought the next best thing was that I would become a coach.
Right.
And I fully thought that again, once completing my 5 year service obligation, I'd find my way back into football. But two things happened, and first I had a different option that I didn't foresee. But I actually applied to while I was still in the Army. I applied to join the CIA
Really?
in the early '90s, like '92, I think it was, and they turned me down. And then I said, well, okay, then I'll get out, and I started looking at industry as well.
Sure.
And I didn't like my industry options, but more importantly, I fell in love with being a soldier.
Really?
I like being around soldiers. My first assignment was at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I was in a heavy artillery unit. And my second assignment, where I could get out of the Army, I was in the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, and I really fell in love with the idea of being a soldier. Not to the point of saying I'm ready to make this a career,
Right.
but I was going to stay on the azimuth I was on. I was going to stay on this line and continue to do this for as long as I did it. And I always tried to promise myself, when I don't like doing this anymore, I'm gonna transition.
Right.
And so 20 years later, I finally
So I
grew
think
up.
that's interesting because I love the word you use that you fell in love with it because it was something that you did, and then over time you knew you loved doing this. After those 5 years, take me through some of the different things you went through. Obviously, going from coming out initially and then going down to the 82nd Airborne, and then what did you do after that? And obviously, you're going up through the ranks of the military.
Right.
You're a commissioned officer, and then kind of walk me through that a little bit.
Well, in my first assignment at Fort Sill, I had my first combat deployment as part of Desert Shield, Desert Storm,
Yeah.
and I firsthand kind of saw the devastation of war. I mean, we all had
Mhm.
this sort of noble uh, vision of what war is about, and it's glamorous, and it's anything but that. And I said very early on that war, when mankind has to resort to war, it's the saddest thing. I mean,
Mhm.
it's absolute destruction, and there's nothing glamorous about it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I am, and it's funny because and when looking at your background, we came from sort of two different worlds, but at the same time, they're not. When I was on the FBI's hostage rescue team, I was in Kosovo a lot during the war. I was in a lot of other really bad places.
Right.
And how you just described war, I think, is exactly how I think about it, especially after seeing the atrocities that you've seen, I've seen in different places.
Yep.
It's really man's inhumanity to man.
Yep.
And I think that's pretty remarkable because I agree with you 100%. When you came out of there and you went through your first deployment, what's your thoughts when you come back to the United States? Like you've seen war, you've been in it, you're a professional soldier, and obviously you end up staying for a long time in the military till you retire. So what's your thoughts when you come back home after deploying your first time?
Um, I think my biggest takeaway from that combat experience is my obligation to make sure that my soldiers are prepared.
Yeah.
And you can't take a day off. You're not going to always have a lot of preparation. You're not going to always have this long glide slope of preparing. And really, I grew up professionally. I mean, to know the standards and the values of living up to your professionalism, you can't compromise that. You can't take a day off.
Right.
And that was really the eye opener to me. And one of the things that happened, I had a soldier that was wounded during the Desert Storm. One of my section chiefs, Staff Sergeant True, and we didn't do the greatest job of taking care of him. He survived, didn't lose any limbs, but as I replayed how the events happened and what we did and how we went about it, I certainly felt that we could have been more efficient. We could have done better, and that was sort of that moment of understanding that I'm responsible.
Big deal.
And this is not a game. This is not glamorous. And I just sort of made this sort of personal promise to myself that I would never let that happen again. And the irony is that 15 years later, 15 or 16 years later, I'm that person that's wounded, and my soldiers are the ones that have my life in my hand.
Yeah. I think some of your points are incredible, and they apply to not just the atrocities and acts of war, but real life. There's the adage of train like you fight, fight like you train.
Right.
Your point about not taking a day off, and it's so true with life as in anything else. Sometimes stuff comes at you way faster than you have time to prepare for, and I think that rings so very true. The other thing, honestly, that you brought up, but you don't hear very many people say this. You hear guys with military backgrounds, you hear guys, I think, from some walks of law enforcement or tactical backgrounds, but the idea of after actions in your head, whether you're doing them formally or not, about how could I have done this better? And that self critique of yourself, which is hard. Nobody wants to do that.
Yep.
Because everybody, you ask most people, hey, you a good speaker? Sure I am. Are you good at this? Sure I am. Right.
Right.
But could you be better? And I think that's remarkable because that's what it's all about, right? That's life. You got to get better. When you go through your career, and then we'll get into when you got wounded. I was in my travels in the FBI and on the hostage rescue team. Been to a lot of bad places, and we did a lot of great things when it came to hostage rescue. But you never ever, at least I didn't. I'm sure you're the same way. It didn't matter how bad it was or what was going on. I never ever thought I was going to get hurt, ever. And I know people that have not been shot at or people that have not been in they think you're crazy, but that's not it. It's not that you're cocky or arrogant.
No.
But you go in with that mentality that you're going to win, and you never really think about it. And so maybe we can walk through what happened that night, because that's where I want to start. Because that's the piece that I think, as I've got to know you over the last several months, and hopefully you stay in my life the rest of my life, because I think you're just an incredible man. But uh, I'd like to walk through that, because you never ever think it's going to be you. And so what I know the story because I've read your book, but what was going on that night that led up to the when you were wounded?
Yes, and you're right. Just to double tap, you don't think that you're going to get hit, and just the larger context of we were part of the surge that President George Bush directed. I think
Right.
my brigade was the second, maybe we're the first of the 5 surge brigades that would get into Baghdad in early 2007, and it was the most violent that I had experienced in my 17 years in the Army at that point. And I remember first saying, this is you almost had to kind of get used to the notion uh, um, that it's very contentious and very dangerous, and this is just the way it is. I remember just sort of, unlike my other deployments, saying this is dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once I sort of processed that, then I just went about my work every day. I mean, it's just, I'm going to a meeting, I'm going to an engagement, I'm going to do something. You're vigilant, you're engaged, and you don't let your guard down.
Yeah.
And so this is now probably month 3 that we're on the ground. It's May of 2007, and I attended a memorial service for 2 young men, 2 soldiers that were killed in a sister battalion in my brigade from Fort Riley, Kansas. It was First Lieutenant Ryan Jones and Specialist Armando Sunson, I think his
God
name
bless
was.
those guys.
And again, it was almost like these deaths hit home. I mean, these were 2 soldiers from Fort Riley and the brigade I was part of. And you're just trying to think through and process, like, the sacrifice of these 2 young men, way younger than me, and their families and all that. And I started, honestly, Bob, started to kind of question first, are we making a difference?
Yeah.
We had no way of,
at
least I had no way where I was like, are we winning? Are we,
right?
Is all the sacrifice worth it? It's just, and just that cold start thing of like, is this value of life worth it?
Right. Now, what position are you and what rank are you when all this is going on?
Yeah, so I'm a lieutenant colonel. I'm a battalion commander. So I've got 400 plus soldiers under my command. I'm working with 2 Iraqi infantry battalions of similar size. Not only with a mission of trying to get the violence under control, trying to stop the violence, but also sort of training, showing these Iraqis what right looks like, and trying to mentor them in the same fight. So it's it was ultimately sort of about not just winning the fight, but being able to pass this fight on to our Iraqis, so we're not here forever.
Right. How was it? Was that interaction good at the time with all the foreign service members and stuff, or was it frustrating?
It was a challenge. I wouldn't say frustrating. I think the one thing that you had language and culture.
Yep.
Big
deal
up front.
Yep.
I got young soldiers that don't have a lot of experience in dealing with a different language and different culture, and so so there was certainly some learning, a steep learning curve that had to be taken on, and I remember what was really unique about this deployment over my Army career was I thought that our senior leaders said, look, we trust you guys to figure out what's going to work for you. There is no one size fits all solution.
Right.
And so in my case, we ultimately came to the conclusion that we needed to sort of set up we called it a JSS, a Joint Security Station. And basically we found a place in our battle space, and we occupied it. Found a pretty large house, a large home of I think a former Iraqi general, and we built our fort there. We called it Joint Security Station Torch, because we wanted to be a light. And the challenge that I remember really facing was when I told my soldiers that we were going to live out there with our Iraqi counterparts, and there was some real concerns about that.
Right.
And not that I felt like I had to, lead by example all the time, but I realized that I really needed to be out there, and like if I'm willing to do this, that you can do this too. And
right.
And so we did that, and that helped quickly kind of overcome that apprehension, and we were able to kind of again continue to grow the relationship with the Iraqis.
Yeah.
I had I developed, and I probably didn't appreciate the relationship that I developed with my Iraqi counterparts, and the magnitude of it. But I think, as you read in the book, they were there, to give blood and endured, some significant indignities because they wanted to support me after I was wounded.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. When we get to the book, like I said, I highly encourage everybody to go out and buy this book. Well, you go to the two young soldiers that were killed services, and then when you're coming back is when all this happens. So
Yep.
can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. So the other thing that was sort of ironic or special about that night was that all of the 6 battalion commanders in my brigade, my 5 counterparts in my brigade, that was the first time we were all together since we deployed. And so we kind of caught up a little bit, just talking about our fights and our challenges. And then ultimately we all had to kind of go back to our day jobs. And so I, departed Forward Operating Base Falcon in a 4-vehicle patrol. I was the third of 4 vehicles. We were riding what we call a herringbone formation, so we weren't lined up one behind each other. And I remember my heart just still heavy with the loss of these young men.
Sure.
And, thinking about them, thinking about their families, thinking about what I needed to do the next day. And,
that's right.
And it's just this muffled wham that just, it's like a pop. And, I'm flying through the air.
Where were you in the vehicle up front?
I was in the right front.
Yeah.
I was a TC, and all of a sudden, I'm hitting the ground and I'm rolling till I come to a stop on my back. And so, I knew what it was. I knew it was, I'd been hit by an IED.
Yeah.
And I was pissed. I mean, Bob, I remember just being angry, like, I'm like, how dare these guys? I'm trying to make a difference here. I'm trying to make a difference, and they're trying to kill me. And that anger very quickly, shifted to the realization that I was wounded. Like, this is serious. And I knew that I could not move. And
it's dark out.
It's dark out. Yeah. It's 9:30 at night or so.
And the vehicle has traveled on.
Yeah, the vehicle didn't stop. And I said, God, I do not want to die in this country as I lead there. And I lost I lost consciousness. That's kind of my last thought. My senior non-commissioned officer, First Sergeant Frederick Johnson, who was my acting battalion command sergeant major, because my command sergeant major had been on emergency leave. he was in the vehicle following mine, so he was the first to arrive at my vehicle when it finally came to a stop.
Right.
And he was the one that recognized I was missing. So there were 4 other people in my vehicle that didn't know I was missing. My U.S. citizen civilian interpreter was also wounded, Mike Oro, and he had been in some pain. He sustained a leg injury as well, and I think he had garnered everybody's attention. But First Sergeant Johnson said, "Where's the colonel?" And one of my company commanders was actually in the vehicle with me, and that's when he said he realized that I wasn't in there and I wasn't there.
Right.
And First Sergeant Johnson would locate me, I guess, about 100 meters or so from where my vehicle came to rest. And he was the one that began to resuscitate me, and my medic, or my acting medic, who was a chemicals MOS soldier, would put the tourniquets on my legs. The fact that the doctors give him credit for saving my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. What do you remember next? Like when you pass out, obviously, but what do you remember? When's the next moment you remember
I
something?
remember First Sergeant Johnson being like inches away from my face.
Yeah.
He actually told me that I had hit him, like I had punched him, like 3 times, but I have no recollection of that. And I think I was certainly in and out of consciousness and confused as to why he was so close to me.
Right.
I could hear that was sort of chaos, in the background. I realized that I was wounded, and I think instinctively knew it was serious, but I didn't know what was wrong with me at this point.
Right.
Then they finally are going to get me in a vehicle to evacuate me, and they're trying to move me, they're trying to pick me up, and I'm so bloody, I'm slippery that they can't get a good grip on me, and they've got to take some of my uniform off. And as they get me in the vehicle, I basically recall my right foot almost on my stomach, on my lap, and seeing that, and I realized I can't really feel my legs, and now I'm beginning to understand the magnitude
The
of
severity of
my
it.
injuries.
Right.
Now I'm in shock. I'm not sure I recognize it, but I have to be in shock at this point.
Oh, sure.
And I'm in the vehicle, and the young man, my medic, Eric Brown, who had put the tourniquets on my legs, I'm resting in his lap inside the vehicle, inside the back of a Humvee, and we start to move back to go back to Falcon because we had just left Falcon when I got hit. And I remember asking him to say the soldier's prayer. I knew it was bad.
Right.
Again, I didn't know how bad, but I knew it was bad. We got back to Falcon, and we got to the battalion aids, or the aid station on the forward operating base, and ironically, this little all the doctors. It was I guess the doctors had gotten together to play video games on Monday nights, and it was a relatively quiet night, and so they were literally all there when I came in.
Man, that's unbelievable.
And I saw one of I think when it really started to hit me was one of my fellow battalion commanders, Rob Weaver. When I saw the look on his face, that probably told me everything.
Right.
Like, this was not, I knew it just was, the look of concern on his face was not good.
Right.
And
were you able to have a conversation with him then, or just you saw it and that's all you needed to see?
No, I didn't. I don't. But I was talking to my boss, my brigade commander, Colonel Ricky Gibbs, and I think the doctors were even a little frustrated with him because they thought he was kind of getting in the way. he was holding my hand and just talking to me, trying to talk to me and be positive.
Sure.
And I think I remember just saying to him, it really just, at this point, I knew I wasn't sure I was going to make it home.
Right.
And, I just wanted him to know that I wanted him to convey to my wife and kids, that I love them.
That's right. Yeah.
And I wanted him to make sure they knew that. I remember hearing the helicopter coming in to get me. I could hear it.
Yeah.
I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And that's those are sort of my last memories of being in Baghdad.
Wow. That is absolutely incredible. And when you you get out of Baghdad, do you go anywhere in there to be stabilized before they get you back home, obviously, to do surgery or whatever? Or what? I mean, it just I don't think, well, one, I'm positive people that have never seen our militaries deploy overseas, the infrastructure they can build in 5 minutes. It's incredible. Like I've
Right.
seen it all over the world. But you obviously need a surgeon.
Yep.
You
Yeah. So I would go. I would go from forward operating base Falcon to the Green Zone. So that's where we had a cache, a military hospital.
Yeah.
That they had built. I can't remember which unit was running the cache at that point, but and that's where I had my first surgeries.
Yeah.
Ironically, the two doctors operating on me that evening were West Point grads. I think you read that.
Yeah, I've read the book.
91 grads that had recognized me. Well, those docs give my medic credit for saving my life because of how well he put the tourniquets on my legs. But just that evening, just sort of the magnitude of my injuries, I went through 129 units of blood that night.
Unbelievable.
And they say I went into arrest 6 different times that evening. So,
oh my God!
So I kept trying to die on them, and so I would they would get me stabilized, and then I think the next day I moved from there to Balad, which was an air base where I went through additional surgeries there. And then from Balad, I'd go from there to Longstuhl, Germany, where I had additional surgeries. And so and then from Longstuhl to Andrews, right here in the DMV, on the 11th of May, I would arrive here at Andrews and then get transported to Walter Reed.
That's absolutely incredible. One of the things that I just want to get your mindset on this, and I'm sure I already know it, but I want you to say it for everybody that's listening. But part of any being a soldier or being in special weapons and tactics units or hostage rescue teams, you always push yourself physically, mentally, training wise, whatever. But I can remember many times being on just some incredibly long overland event that you don't know is going to end, right? And so you don't know if it's 25 miles, 30 miles, 40, whatever it is. And you get to a point where it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to put my right foot in front of my left.
Yep.
And I'm going to do that for the next 20 miles. But I'm not going to worry about the 20 miles. I'm going to worry about putting that right foot in front of my left foot. So I really want to get, as you're moving forward, right? And you're surviving, you're getting through this. What is your mindset? Like, are you going, okay, I'm good. I'm good. Now I'm going to do this. Like how mentally, because I think mentally, and one of the reasons I say this, I don't think you know this about me. I haven't told you this, but when I was state trooper, I was cross-trained as a national registered paramedic. When I went into the FBI, I ran the medical program at the Washington Field Office for SWAT teams. When I was on the hostage rescue team, my secondary, job, besides being an assaulter, I ran the global medical response when we went anywhere. So I wasn't there that night, but trust me, I know your injuries.
Right.
Because I've seen it and worked on guys like this. And so mindset though from your mind, because I think that's such a positive thing with a major injury like this. And the survival rate is incredible when somebody is engaged and they're fighting for it like you are. What were you thinking, like, as you're getting through that, and like, are you starting to get more positive? You know what I mean? One, don't want to die in this country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Read it in your book, right?
Yep.
Don't want to die in this country. Get me out of here. And so as you're moving forward, what was your mindset? I think that's really important to people.
Well, I can tell you that I have no mindset because I'm literally in an induced coma
all the way
across. Now, a little anecdote that the flight nurse from Longstool to Andrews, she stayed with me in the ambulance to Walter Reed,
Right.
and she was able to talk to my wife, and she told my wife, I have never given anybody this much sedative on the plane. So I was fighting.
So that's what I mean. I think
but
it's so
I have
important.
no memory of it.
No memory.
But she told him, she says, I have never given, and she kind of said, he's going to be all right. He's a fighter.
That's right.
But I have no recollection of that.
No recollection. But I think we can safely say, and I think this is important, whether you're conscious, your mental mindset is, I'm fighting.
Yep.
I'm going to fight through this, and I'm going to get there. And I think that is so important.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. It could be about this, could be about life, could be about politics, could be about whatever.
Right.
But I think that mindset that you have is incredible. And I think that's one of the things I really think people would be interested about. When you finally wake up, Walter Reed, that's where you wake up?
Yep.
And you see your family?
Yeah. So my wife got there pretty quick. And I had been I was at Walter Reed. I'm going in and out of surgery every other day, and I still have my legs at this point. But a week after being there, on the 18th of May, a week back, they had to take my left leg to save my life. So I started the blood vessels could no longer sustain blood flow in my left leg, and they took me into surgery and they amputated my left leg.
Yeah.
Then the next day, the same thing happens to my right leg.
Really?
But they actually pull a vein. You can still see they pull a vein, from my left bicep, and they put in my right leg. So they were able to save my right leg. And by this time, I'm out of my induced coma, and I'm able to communicate with the doctors. It's funny you mentioned. I think my kids were there by this time. I recognized my son, but I didn't recognize my daughter. And so they were still, as my wife described to me, still unsure if I had any long-term TBIs or anything. I was often describing myself as being in different locations from different wars. And so I was a hot mess for sure. And so they just, my body was still trying to retain its equilibrium.
Right.
But ultimately, after they saved my right leg, I was able to have a coherent enough conversation. And, they were saying, they felt confident they could save my right leg, but there were some risks associated with it, i.e., like, the same thing could happen again. I'm like, well, in my mind, I'm like, well, what if this happens when I'm out of the hospital? This is not a good thing. And
no.
And the other thing was my leg wasn't going to really work anymore as it was intended.
Right.
And so one leg's missing, the other one wasn't going to work. I didn't know what the value of really maintaining it was. And so I ultimately made that decision for them to amputate it. And the other thing, Bob, I was just tired of surgery. I'm going through surgery.
I can't imagine.
I felt like I was getting beat to an inch of my life, and I was sick of it.
Yeah.
And so on the 24th of May, they amputated my right leg above the knee. And so
when that happened, though, did that immediately like help?
Oh yeah.
Like all of a sudden you're starting to.
Yeah, my health immediately changed. The other thing that I'd been contending with was the infections from the blast.
Oh, sure.
And those can be as devastating as anything. And so when that limb was gone, essentially that was the rest of the infection that I was also dealing with.
Oh, right on.
And
right on.
and so I think within a day I was out of ICU and up on a regular
Oh,
ward.
wow. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
home run. That was exactly what needed to
But the
happen.
same day they had they amputated my right leg. They discovered that my right arm and elbow were broken. And
No,
yeah,
they had noticed that up
yeah,
until then. There's
yeah,
too much other stuff going on.
yeah. It
You
was
know?
the 4 alarm fire was my
Yeah. Oh,
legs,
by the way, I think your arm's broke.
and of course that needed some surgery to repair that, and then and ultimately I had some complications from that surgery. I sustained some radial nerve damage, which at the time prevented me from picking up my being able to bend my wrists. And the blast injuries caused this phenomenon called heterotopic ossification. Uh, long-winded for my body was producing too much calcium, and it caused my right arm to lock up at a right angle. I couldn't bend my right wrist. I couldn't bend my right arm anymore. I was now functionally down to one limb. My non-dominant left arm and hand was all I could use.
Unbelievable.
I was 215 pounds before I was wounded. I was down to 148 pounds.
Oh my God.
And again, with one usable limb, I needed help for everything:
Yeah.
eating,
Sure.
bathing, going to the
Sure.
bathroom. There wasn't anything I couldn't do by myself.
Yeah. How did they end up fixing the arm?
Well, I would. You can see the
Oh,
scars
no, I can
there.
see it, yeah.
I 4 different operations, having to clean out the bones, and was really the big thing. And my radial nerve, ultimately
Oh, yeah.
healed itself over time, and so I've got a good amount of use of of my hand
That's
and
good.
my arm.
That's really good. When you get through this uh, just unbelievable traumatic situation, and you then continue on active duty, right?
Yep.
So where do you go and what do you do there?
Well, that path wasn't quite that
Easy, I guess.
easy
Yeah.
because of the nature of my injuries.
Sure.
I was going to have to go through a med board, and of course, I was going to be found unfit, which I did go through. Eventually, go through a med board and found unfit. I was fortunate that there's a process called COAD, or continuation on active duty, where a service member with the number of years that I had at the time could uh, essentially apply. You had to make an argument that despite your injuries, that you still could be gainfully employed,
Right.
and so I had to begin that process, which I did. And oh, by the way, while I was recovering, I went to grad school
Yep.
at Georgetown.
Yep.
So a year after I was wounded, I started grad school at Georgetown. It finished in a year. The following year, I completed my War College Fellowship at the Institute of World Politics here in Washington, D.C. as well. And so I think, we're able to make a good case. And so just short of 3 years after being wounded, uh, I was approved to stay on active duty. And a few months later, and during that time period, I had come out on the promotion list to colonel. And a year later, so my first job after being approved to stay on active duty, was ironically served as the director of the Army's Wounded Warrior Program.
Yeah, but I think that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Which was
I
a
mean,
program focused on our transition of our severely wounded,
Sure.
injured, and ill soldiers. And so I got to lead that program for a couple years. And during that time period, I came out on the command list as the colonel's command list for the garrison at Fort Belvoir.
Yeah, that's incredible. See, you don't. I don't even know if you understand when I hear what you're saying, how incredible of a journey you've had, and how much triumph because of your mindset, you've done. The fact that you're that severely injured and you're getting ready to go do a graduate program at Georgetown or going back to the military college, it's just incredible. I think most people, Greg, honestly, would still just be trying to figure out which way's up. And part of your story and part of being around you, it's contagious. Just when I came back from our coffee in Virginia when we first met,
Mm-hmm.
your just your mindset in life is so refreshing and contagious because you're so positive. And here's the thing, and it goes back, and I'll say this before we leave on your book, Finding Waypoints, because you're constantly moving forward, right? You're constantly trying to find that next waypoint or wherever you're going to go.
Right.
And people don't know waypoints are either a point on a map or like with airplanes, it's a place you're going to go find.
Right.
And we'll get to the book by the end, but is that something, is that just you or is that just the way you've developed after your injuries? In other words, were you like this all the time? Because I'm telling you, I don't think most people would be like this right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I like to say the answer is a little bit of both. I probably would have never, before I was wounded, I probably would have never used the term waypoints. It's one I was familiar with.
Sure.
But what happened what was transformative was that I had to rebuild my life. And in rebuilding my life, it was like every single thing that I had done in my life, you do it one day at a time.
Yeah.
I had to relearn what it meant to be present. And there's two parts to being present. And one part is not holding on to the past, really relinquishing what happened in the past. And I said, perhaps the greatest gift was that my legs were gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like they were damaged and mangled and I had to look at them every day or I had to wonder if they were going to get better. They were gone.
Yeah.
And so I let that go. They weren't coming back. And honestly, Bob, I didn't have a vision of a future. I didn't know what the path had for me. I didn't have a dream of where I wanted to go.
Right.
And so I guess I singularly dedicated myself to just being where I'm at, being the best I can be and holding myself accountable and not worrying about anything else. That was all I could do, was to put my energy in that. And so I reminded myself that, as I was learning to walk, that I can't be afraid to fail. I'm going to fall.
Sure.
I'm going to fail.
Yeah, right. Sure.
But I began to expand that in terms of my life and speaking and acting and anything else I tried, whether it's, skiing, skydiving, scuba diving.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be afraid. And it was absolutely liberating not to be worried about the past and not to be worried about the future.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That has to be an unbelievable feeling. When you retire as a full bird colonel, and then you come out of the military, and you just touched on it, but I think your journey continues, and it's incredible. So, what gets you into movies, and I get the background, but what led you down the path of being a motivational speaker also? Because I think that's huge, for a lot of reasons,
Yep. Well, literally just 4 months after being wounded, I had a classmate. At first, a West Point classmate and teammate named Mike Sullivan had come to visit me when I was still in the hospital as an inpatient. And he was a coach for the New York Giants, wide receivers coach. Well, when the football season started later that fall, the Giants were coming to Washington to play the then Washington Redskins. And the Giants hadn't won a game and the Redskins were undefeated. And Mike, I have to give Mike all the credit in the world for seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Sure.
And he called me up and said, "Hey, our team is struggling. Would you be willing to speak with them?" And I said, "Sure, why not? What do I got to lose? I mean, this spirit of again, what do I have to lose?"
Yeah.
And so I spoke to him for 15 or 20 minutes the night before they played the Washington Redskins. And ultimately they would win that game. And they felt I was a big part of it, or at least some of the spirit behind it. Look, I don't call any plays. I don't play, but they felt
Certainly
I had.
motivated them, though.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
felt like
certainly.
they felt like I had touched them, and so that began the first of 11 consecutive road victories that the New York Giants would win
Wow.
that season,
Wow.
culminating in them beating the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 42, where I spoke to them one more time that season, the night before the game. And so that is where my motivational speaking began. I guess after that story came out that I talked to him, everybody wanted to know what I had to say, and it kind of created a demand where people wanted to hear me, and so here I am, 18 plus years later, still speaking quite a bit, and that led to the moving. So I did the movement. I was still on active duty. In fact,
Really?
I actually
Really?
I was still. I hadn't even gotten promoted to colonel when I began filming Battleship. The director, Peter Berg, a New Yorker and a lifelong New York Giants fan. That's how this all began.
Isn't it amazing how everything's just kind of connected? It
Yeah,
just kind of,
so he wanted me in this movie because of my relationship with the Giants,
wow.
And so I never acted before in my life, and again, in the spirit of what do I have to lose, I asked the Army for permission, and they gave me permission, and I acted in a movie for the first time.
Isn't it funny though when you look back at your life and you think about how did it end up here?
Yeah,
There's obviously some grandmaster plan somebody's got someplace,
right.
but it's amazing. You
Yeah.
know, do you still speak a lot with the football teams and stuff?
I do. I'm not working, Giants. There's been a lot of turnover with
Sure.
any of these programs,
Yeah.
but I still speak quite frequently with different teams. Last year, in fact, I even spoke with the Ravens and the Commanders. So, ironically, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's always a pleasure.
That's incredible. How about your family? How's your family doing nowadays?
Well, my family. Thanks for asking, Bob. But my family's doing great. My two kids, those 13 and 14-year-old kids, my daughter,
Yeah.
14, my son, 13, are now 33 and 31. And my daughter has two daughters. Two of my three granddaughters are from her, and my son has three boys and a
Oh my
girl.
goodness. That's awesome.
And we all live in the same neighborhood in Mount Vernon. So it's
Oh, that's perfect.
I could pinch myself every day just to realize how blessed I am to be a grandparent, but just reflecting those moments and knowing how close I was to not being able to see these days
Oh my goodness.
is incredibly humbling.
Do you and it's just you just brought this up to triggered something here. Do you do any talks for the military up at Walter Reed or anything? Did they ask you to come up or
Yeah,
anything?
yeah. I continue to speak really across our military, not just
Sure.
in the Army. I've um, for a number of years, the wounded soldiers now, thankfully, we're not experiencing a whole lot of those, if
Yeah.
any,
Yeah.
right now. But um, across the Army, I mean, last year I was at Carlisle Barracks, Fort Carson, Fort Riley. This year, Fort Bragg this year. So
Yeah.
continue to really engage military formations of all the services.
Yes.
When I have the opportunity, as well as different veterans groups.
Yeah.
I'm a board member on the Gary Sinise Foundation
Mhm.
board. Hope for the Warriors, Army Emergency Relief,
Yeah.
to name a few. And so
I think that's
just
great,
trying
Greg.
to engage still.
What's next for you? I mean, you have the most riveting life and the things. Well, what's next for you? What do you see down the road?
Well, I think it's just what's next is I don't worry about what's next. If
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just I think my life is focused on continue to give back, continue to make a difference, and so I don't know what's next. I don't know where I'm going to be able to help or where I'm going to be able to make a difference. And I don't worry about it. I really, really try to live my life in the presence. And so I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
And the next, if the Lord gives me the next day, we'll take that on.
I think it's incredible. I want to put up this book. I want everybody to make sure they go out and buy a copy of this. The title's Finding Waypoints: A Warrior's Journey Towards Peace and Purpose, by Colonel Gregory Gadson and Teresa Slocker. This book, if you read the first chapter, you'll read the whole book and you won't put it down. It's an incredible book about just about almost everything we've talked about today. Not everything, but a lot. If you had one or two key things that you would recommend to anybody that's going through a tough time in their life or have had tragedy or obstacles to overcome, what would you throw out to somebody that was listening to this right now? Because there's you and I both know, we talked about this before we were videoing this, that our country's in a tough spot right now. A lot of people are hurting. People are looking for help. What thoughts would you give anybody if they were going through a tough problem in their life right now?
Well, it's to me, it's almost the answer to that question is about how you live your life before these tough moments. I can look back and say that I tried to live my life being the best I can every day. And admittedly, I have fallen short on many days.
Sure.
But in this crisis moment of my life, I had a character about myself of not quitting and fighting, even when I didn't know
That's right.
what was around the corner. I didn't know what was next. And so as I answer that question, I talk about us being present, holding ourselves accountable to being our best. And so God forbid that day ever comes. But when you're faced with crisis, people often ask me, how are you resilient? How are you being so resilient? I said, well, there's not a resiliency switch that I turn on. It's part of me. It's part of your character.
Yeah.
And the investment that you get a chance to put in yourself every day is the dividend that you'll have in those tough moments. And so challenge yourself to focus yourself in being present, holding yourself accountable to being your best. And I say that leads to peace. That gives me peace. Doesn't mean I win everything. Doesn't mean things go exactly the way I want, because they don't always do. But I can accept that. The world has never woken up and said, today is your bad day, Greg. Bad things happen out there, and unfortunately, there's evil in the world, and there's folks that want ill will to fellow mankind. But we can focus our energy on the positive. We own that. You own your energy. You give it away to the things that you can't control, or do you focus it on the things that you can? And I say be selfish and focus it on the things that you can own. And that's how you prepare for those moments. Just being able to be where you're at. Be where you're at.
I think that's incredible words of wisdom, and I hope people take solace in that. Greg Gadson, thank you so much for coming to the show today. And God bless you, and thanks for everything for this country.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah. Thanks. It was fun.
Until I see everybody again, peace. Love each other.